Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Riptide GP2. Now, to head you off at the pass as regards to why I'm doing another mobile port, well, the company behind this, Vector Design, rang a bell, and I recall they were the folks behind the new Hydro Thunder game, which was only published on Xbox 360 and the Windows Store for Windows 8. So you can't actually play it on Windows 7, and that's the reason most people haven't played the damn thing. That's a shame. I played it on 360, and it was good. I picked it up because I played Hydro Thunder back in the Dreamcast days, and I loved it. It was an absolutely fantastic boat racing game. And along comes Riptide GP2, which was described by some people as kind of being a hybrid of Hydro Thunder and Wave Race. And like, wow, Wave Race. I enjoyed Wave Race 64 as well. That was probably one of the best water racing games that have ever been made. So this sounds ideal. Unfortunately, not exactly. Let's head over to the settings menu. Here we go. Not much of a settings menu, I am afraid. These are the graphics options available. Now, this is on full resolution. You know, this is on ultra shader complexity. Everything is up to maximum. I'm not really sure why the 60 hertz option is here. I thought if I click it off, maybe it'll go to 120. No, it locks to 60 anyway, so I assume this is actually VSync. It's just they called it 60 hertz for no apparent reason. So yeah, that's a little bit of a weird one. So everything is on. Everything is at max. And even just looking at the title screen, you can clearly see some really, really low quality texture work here. I mean, I am talking late PS2 era texture work, and I'm not exaggerating. If you look at the consoles in the back in particular, even the fact that there doesn't appear to be any AA, even the boats, which you would think would have quite a lot of detail on them, completely lacking. It looks old, and I suppose that makes sense considering it is a mobile game, and you can kind of accept it there, but the problem is, on the Steam page, they promise this as being the definitive edition, you know, with high-resolution textures, and you've got all of this, high-res water mesh, high-res models, high-res textures. These are the high-res textures? Really? Good lord. Gotta be kidding me. There's your keyboard. You can actually, I don't think you can actually turn this off. Like, you can't change this anyway. Accelerate is on auto-accelerate. There is no actual accelerate button for some reason. I assume, again, because it's a mobile game, you want to minimize your number of inputs. You can't rebind any of this. So, I'm not even sure why accelerate is written as auto-accelerate, because it gives you the impression that you could toggle that. Nope, apparently not. So the game has 4 buttons, and that really is about it. There was a stunt system. I'll show you how that actually works. The keyboard works fine. You can use a gamepad if you want, but again, the keyboard works absolutely fine with this. And then you've got your sound effects and music sliders. So it looks like it's got a lot of visual options, but they don't seem to do much. So it's a bit disappointing. Now, the game does have split screen, which is cool. You very rarely get split screen games for PC these days, so it's nice to have that. It's also got online play. Unfortunately, no one's bloody playing it. So I found it impossible to test. Unsurprisingly. You'd think even on launch day that there'd be a few people, but no, apparently not. So, let's get into it, and I'll show you what's going on. So, like most racing games, really, you've got a bunch of different courses and different series to go through. In the case of many mobile games, this one included, get a bunch of stars in order to unlock the next one, which is pretty much an artificial way of ensuring that you have to replay the same level multiple times. And you are required to do that, otherwise you can't get to the content, and the amount of stars increases significantly. So let's go on to Churn Alley, which is the final one in this series, and try and get a couple of extra stars here. So this will give you a little bit of a look at the track. I mean, really there's not a huge amount to see. The game does not look high resolution. The game, I mean, it looks old. Let's be honest. I mean, look at those trees over there. If you look at the crowd, it doesn't even move. And it's blurry as all hell as well. So it's hard to be impressed, let me put it that way, by the fidelity of it. The water effects are reasonable, and the water is supposedly dynamic, so you do have to contend with the fact that the waves are going to be all over the bloody place, with the exception of these waves, which are not all over the bloody place. They are wherever the hell the game wants to put them. And they're going to be the same regardless every time you go around, so some of the waves are dynamic, not all of them. It's a little bit odd there. And then you've got these jumps, which you can use a stunt system on. So that is a stunt. You use WA, S, and D in combination with the cursor keys, which is what you're using to steer, in order to pull off a stunt. That stunt will get you a bit of a boost bar. Now, the system reduces the amount of boost you get for repeating the same stunt. So half of the unlock system and progression in the game involves getting more stunts so that you can actually chain together ones which you haven't used yet. So the more stunts you have in your library, the more boost you're going to be able to do in general. And the boost is required, because otherwise there is no bloody way in a million years you're going to keep up with the AI. In fact, early on, it seems like the AI was deliberately designed to beat you regardless of whether or not you played perfectly, because you simply don't have the upgrades necessary to keep up with them. It may have been that I was just bad. I mean, that is a possibility, don't get me wrong. But I tried a number of times with my basic watercraft before upgrading it, and I did not find it possible to beat the guy that was in the lead. He pretty much raced perfectly and seemed to just be faster than me in general. So, yeah, there's that. Alright, I don't think I can do a double backflip there as much as I would like to. There are some more intense stunts that get you a bunch more points, but if you don't nail them, then you fall off your watercraft. In fact, if the animation doesn't complete entirely, you're out. I mean, it's as simple as that. You're gonna fall off your jet ski or whatever the hell you want to call it. It's really that simple. So I'm still in 5th place, which is kind of surprising considering I haven't really crashed into too much, but this is the last race of the series and they deliberately ramp the difficulty up, so I imagine they expect you to replay the previous levels over and over again, but 5th place is fairly pathetic, so wasn't really much in it, but never mind. We're going to hop back to one of the previous ones. So there are a number of different race types available. Hot lap, basic race, and elimination. Elimination is what you'd expect. If you are at the back, then, well, you're going to be eliminated. You have a 5-second warning to get ahead of somebody else, and so on and so forth. Outside of that, that really seems to be about it. There are no power-ups or anything along those lines. There is a progression system with a bunch of different vehicles to unlock, as well as some linear upgrades, which will upgrade your boost capacity, as well as things like your speed and your acceleration and handling. Some of the tracks have a couple of different options, and I wouldn't say secret paths, but more difficult to access paths, which involve nailing jumps at high speed in order to get to them. So there's a little bit of variety there, but most of the tracks do look the same, unfortunately. So there's not really much to be said for the actual variety and selection of tracks in general. And they all feel very similar as well, so it's not really a huge amount to say there either. The biggest problem that I have with the actual racing component is the fact that the handling just isn't very enjoyable. Now, to start with, you're always going at full speed, outside of the rare circumstances where you have to hammer on the brake in order to get around a corner, which you don't often have to do. As you saw in the key binding, I wouldn't say key binding because you can't do that, but in the keyboard menu, you actually have auto acceleration on. So you can't accelerate when you want. You can't really vary your speed with the exception of either hitting the boost button or using the brake. Even when you hit boost, you can't turn it off once you've started it, so you just don't have an awful lot of control over your watercraft. And more to the point, I think I was hoping for some nice arcadey drifting going on. Some Hydro Thunder style handling in particular, considering Vector Design was responsible for the Hydro Thunder reboot, which, again, was okay. It was pretty good. But there isn't much of that. There's a satisfying amount of bouncing around on the waves, which I'll give them credit for. They seem to manage to simulate the water quite nicely, but being able to cut around a corner and really slide around with some power, not much of that, unfortunately. Not really an awful lot of that whatsoever. Alright, so there is a progression system, as I mentioned earlier. You do have the ability to unlock skills as well as different tricks, which all require different amounts of skill points, so yeah, we could, let's put one into agility. That's going to make landing things slightly easier. So far, I've not managed to land a single one of the larger stunts, like the double backflip. It seems like you'd need to get so much air, and even putting boost on, it doesn't seem like you get a lot of air doing that. You'd think you would, you know, in in any car game that has boost, if you hit a ramp, generally speaking, you go higher. I've not really noticed that here. I think you may even have to unlock these skills in order to make that happen. Again, it could just be me misinterpreting, but it's just really weird that I've never been able to do that, even though I've hit a boost at maximum speed and really hit a ramp exactly on target at the right angle and still not being able to nail something like a double backflip. So I don't really know what's going on with that. You can also buy new watercraft, although they are pretty expensive. Even the Photon is $25,000, which is going to require a lot of repetition. And that's really the main problem I've got with the progression system. It almost seems like the content is gated in the sense that it really doesn't want you going through it too quickly, and it wants you to repeat content multiple times, which is unfortunately quite common for... Well, we can try Chernali again now that I've got a couple of upgrades. It's quite common for mobile games. They love you repeating tracks over and over again. Also, race length is indicative of it being a mobile game as well. It's something that I criticized in the revival of Death Rally, the fact that races were over in like under a minute. This is slightly longer, but yeah, you'll be done with the race in about 2 minutes, which is not really long enough for my liking. You know, I'd prefer something a little bit more satisfying than that. And it just isn't really there. What I will give them credit for is the boost does give a nice sense of speed. I think the motion blur is pretty reasonable, although it does certainly mean that it's a little bit difficult to actually see everything. I actually managed to nail it there. I think it was that agility upgrade. I really do. I didn't even hit boost there when I was able to do that, but I don't think I would have been able to pull that off without that agility upgrade. So again, that's a little bit of kind of annoying gating going on, yeah. I don't think that's really necessary. It should be down to skill, not what perks you happen to have, but it seems like this game really wants to do that. I don't really find the trick system to be too engaging either, simply because it's very, very simple. You know, you can't do tricks in different ways, and all the tricks seem to take about the same amount of time unless they're double tricks, so pretty much any jump you can nail any of the basic 2x boost tricks, and then you need a higher jump in order to nail the doubles. And that's really about it, but you know, it's certainly no Tony Hawk in that respect, and there's very little flexibility in what you can do with the tricks themselves. They'll look kind of cool, but they're not that satisfying to pull off. Now, if there's something else that I would point to as being particularly unsatisfying, it's the soundtrack, and this is a bit of a weird one. Like, I think you guys know that I do criticize games when they don't actually oh, come on, I nailed that. I was clearly flat. What on earth's going on with that? Anyway, I hit it with a boost as well, which, you know, you would have thought it would have given me even more air, but for some reason I couldn't land that one that time. Very strange. Anyway, as I was saying, I like good soundtracks for games. And I found parts of this soundtrack to be extremely familiar, and I realized that this was stuff that I had actually heard in intros for various esports events, because it came from a royalty-free site called Audio Jungle. Now, this was confirmed by the fact that one of the tracks I heard actually had the Audio Jungle audio watermark on it. I actually heard that in the soundtrack. Just like, whoa, really? It's really surprising that would be there. Shockingly enough, it's actually none of the artists are in the credits for the game at all, and I had to dig through the blog of Vector Design to find out where it came from. I was very suspicious that they had used some royalty-free music. Apparently, they licensed it all the way that was supposed to, but really, using stock royalty-free music for your game, that's not particularly inspiring, honestly. And I was not impressed with that whatsoever. The music, it just isn't really that good at the best of times. And hearing the same 6 tracks that I've actually heard in various online esports events multiple times was really weird. Maybe it was just me, but this track looks... Didn't I just do this track? It certainly looks very, very similar, doesn't it? So, honestly, this game is really, really uninspiring, and that's quite disappointing. I would have much preferred to see the new Hydro Thunder come to Steam and be compatible with Windows 7, but apparently the Microsoft agreement has has prevented them from doing that. I would have thought I would have been able to nail the trick there, but apparently not. Huh. Very strange. Anyway, as I was saying, it's really disappointing that the new Hydro Thunder never made its way to Windows 7, you know, on a platform that people would have actually bloody well played it on. But well, you know, it never did. And this is a poor, poor substitute. I can imagine this being a decent amount of fun on a mobile device. Why not, you know? This doesn't look good on a PC at all, you know, it actually looks extremely old. And frankly, I'd prefer to play the original Hydro Thunder, which you can get, by the way. But on a mobile device, yeah, why not? You know, the auto-acceleration makes sense on a mobile device. But I assess games as if they were on PC. I know, it's strange, isn't it? When I play games on PC, I expect them to be PC games. Insanity, I know. I'm a completely unreasonable critic. Absolutely. But there's really not a lot to love here, unfortunately. As much as I would love to tell you otherwise, because, like I said, I love Hydro Thunder. And knowing that it was these devs behind it, I thought, yeah, this actually could be really, really fun. Or I just wanted, you know, a decent clone of Wave Race, which was absolutely awesome. Probably the best boat handling ever out of any game to this day. I mean, is that an unreasonable assessment? I don't think so. Man, Wave Race 64 was a killer title. Absolutely phenomenal, but I can't say the same of this, I'm afraid. Old assets. It does not look good, even at high speed. I still see really, really low resolution textures and all manner of stuff like that. Very, very static, uninspired levels. A particularly poor soundtrack that really doesn't have anything of note on it. It's got a very generic dubstep and electronica that doesn't inspire me at all. Some of the tracks are so slow and light that you think, am I racing or am I going for a quiet stroll down the canal? Hard to say. You know, some of that music would be better suited to a gondola than a jet ski. And a rather annoying progression model that requires you to repeat the same levels multiple times, and half of it doesn't even seem to be down to skill. I mean, I have no doubt that I'm not nailing everything as well as I should be. I'm not playing particularly well, but there are definitely times when I've done a track, nailed every jump, used every boost, and still just not been able to catch up with the guy in the lead. Because I assume my jet ski is not upgraded enough and he's just driving a better one. And that's really, really annoying. That is extremely irritating. I'm glad that I can finally get into first place with multiple upgrades, and even then I could barely keep up with him. Jeez. How did he get ahead of me? I mean, come on. I was going full tilt and he still managed to get back ahead of me. I'm almost convinced the AI cheats in this thing, but again, I could just be bad. I'm not going to exclude that as a possibility. But unfortunately, with a game this uninspired, I do not have any desire whatsoever to get good at it. This is not a game I will be playing after this video is done. And that's a shame. Because it's a cool genre that doesn't really get enough love. We get a lot of car racing games, but racing on water, as well as, of course, hover racing, is pretty much dead. And that sucks. I love both of those things. I really do. And this is not a good entry to that genre. Not at all. Should have stuck as a mobile game. The PC version is definitely not what is promised on the Steam page. It looks like something from 10 years ago. And I'm not exaggerating. You can find games from 10 years ago that look as good, if not better. This is a pretty decent mobile title that, if you're looking for a reasonable clone of Wave Race, then, hey, play it on your phone, and it'll probably be alright. But, in this case, not what you really need for PC. I still can't get access to this. I've almost 3-starred everything there, and, geez, they're pretty strict, I've got to say, with allowing it to get to the next set of tracks, so yeah, I'm sorry, I can't be bothered to replay the same tracks over and over and over again, particularly when the racing experience is just so shallow and doesn't handle very well. So yeah, there's that. Riptide GP2, ladies and gentlemen, available on PC for $10 or your regional equivalent, and significantly cheaper on every other mobile device, and probably worth a pickup there if you're looking for a little bit of casual racing fun at the bus stop. If you're looking for something a little bit meatier on PC, you will not find it here. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Take a look at Riptide GP2. And I'll see you next time.